Bandwagon. 16. Fallacy. Bandwagon. The bandwagon fallacy, or argumentum ad populum, is a faulty argument that asserts a claim is true, good, or valid simply because it is popular or widely believed. It relies on the idea that everyone believes it, rather than on sound reasoning or evidence. This fallacy can be seen in everyday life, marketing, political speeches, and even scientific discussions, where popularity is mistakenly equated with correctness. How it works. The bandwagon fallacy follows this basic structure. Claim: X is popular or supported by a majority. Conclusion: therefore, X is correct or morally good. The unstated assumption is that popularity equals truth, which is a leap in logic. Examples. In marketing, a product is advertised as the best-selling to convince consumers it is superior. In daily life, someone decides to do something simply because everyone else is doing it, even if it's wrong or unsafe. In education, a student chooses the same college as their siblings because everyone in our family goes there, instead of considering their own needs or other options. In history, the belief that the world was flat was once widely accepted but proven incorrect. Why it's a fallacy? Appeals to emotion, not reason. It plays on the desire to fit in and conform, rather than providing logical proof. Popularity does not equal truth. Many widely held beliefs throughout history have turned out to be wrong. Independent verification is necessary. For a claim to be true, it should be supported by evidence and sound reasoning, not just by the number of people who believe it. How to avoid it? Practice critical thinking. Question the popularity of an idea and seek out factual evidence. Consider diverse perspectives. Listen to those with differing opinions to avoid blindly following the crowd. Take time for informed decisions. Before adopting a popular trend or idea, pause to understand its underlying reasons and potential limitations. Also known as peer pressure. Description of bandwagon. The bandwagon is a fallacy in which a threat of rejection by one's peers, or peer pressure, is substituted for evidence in an argument. This line of reasoning has the following form. Person P is pressured by his/her peers or threatened with rejection. Therefore person P's claim X is false. This line of reasoning is fallacious because peer pressure and threat of rejection do not constitute evidence for rejecting a claim. This is especially clear in the following example. Bill, I know you think that 1 + 1 = 2. But we don't accept that sort of thing in our group. Bill: I was just joking. Of course I don't believe that. It is clear that the pressure from Bill's group has no bearing on the truth of the claim that 1 + 1 = 2. It should be noted that loyalty to a group and the need to belong can give people very strong reasons to conform to the views and positions of those groups. Further, from a practical standpoint, we must often compromise our beliefs in order to belong to groups. However, this feeling of loyalty or the need to belong simply do not constitute evidence for a claim. Examples of bandwagon. Bill says that he likes the idea that people should work for their welfare when they can. His friends laugh at him, accuse him of fascist leanings, and threaten to ostracize him from their group. He decides to recant and abandon his position to avoid rejection. Bill: I like classical music and I think it is of higher quality than most modern music. Jill: that stuff is for old people. Dave: yeah, only real wussies listen to that crap. Besides, Anthrax rules. It rules. Bill: well, I don't really like it that much. Anthrax is much better. Bill thinks that welfare is needed in some cases. His friends in the Young Republicans taunt him every time he makes his views known. He accepts their views in order to avoid rejection. 17. Fallacy. Begging the question. Begging the question is a logical fallacy where an argument's premises assume the truth of the conclusion, rather than providing actual evidence for it. This form of circular reasoning uses the point it is trying to prove as proof, making it inherently unpersuasive to anyone who doesn't already agree with the conclusion. For example, saying abortion is wrong because it is immoral is a fallacy because immoral simply restates the conclusion of wrong without providing independent evidence, according to Braintraining and Texas State University. Characteristics of the fallacy. Assumes the conclusion. The argument's foundation rests on the idea that the conclusion is already true. Circular reasoning. It functions as a circle, where the argument points back to itself as support. Lack of independent evidence. No actual external proof is offered to back up the claim. Common misusage. In modern common speech, begs the question is often misused to mean raises the question. This newer usage is so widespread that major dictionaries, such as Merriam-Webster, now include it without any qualification, notes quick and dirty tips. Examples. The Bible is divinely inspired because the Bible says it is. Smoking causes cancer because cigarette smoke is a carcinogen. Wool sweaters are superior to nylon jackets as fall attire because wool sweaters have a higher wool content. Also known as circular reasoning, reasoning in a circle, petitio principii. Description of begging the question. Begging the question is a fallacy in which the premises include the claim that the conclusion is true or directly or indirectly assume that the conclusion is true. This sort of reasoning typically has the following form. Premises in which the truth of the conclusion is claimed or the truth of the conclusion is assumed, either directly or indirectly. Claim C. The conclusion is true. This sort of reasoning is fallacious because simply assuming that the conclusion is true, directly or indirectly, in the premises does not constitute evidence for that conclusion. Obviously, simply assuming a claim is true does not serve as evidence for that claim. This is especially clear in particularly blatant cases. X is true. The evidence for this claim is that X is true. Some cases of question begging are fairly blatant, while others can be extremely subtle. Examples of begging the question. Bill. God must exist. Jill. How do you know? Bill. Because the Bible says so. Jill. Why should I believe the Bible? Bill. Because the Bible was written by God. If such actions were not illegal, then they would not be prohibited by the law. The belief in God is universal. After all, everyone believes in God. Interviewer. Your resume looks impressive, but I need another reference. Bill. Jill can give me a good reference. Interviewer. Good. But how do I know that Jill is trustworthy? Bill. Certainly. I can vouch for her.